What is up, everyone? It's the guy here, and welcome back to another episode of Themindhere. This is my bi-weekly podcast where I provide updates on my YouTube channel, discuss what I do behind the scenes, and talk about other things that come to mind. It also serves as a way to keep myself accountable and externally motivated to get my work done. If you're interested in how I make my music and videos, feel free to take a look at some previous episodes. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. Alright, let's start off with some channel updates and progress. So, by the nature of the work, since for what I've been working on these past 2 weeks, I've been working on some background music for my friend, for her video game, and since I want to release that all at once in an album form, I can't really discuss the specifics of what I've been doing in these songs right now, but I can talk a little bit about just what I've noticed in general that I could work on to help improve my compositions in the future. Several things that I want to work on, one of the most important being that I want to work on a little bit of the sound design of some of the instruments, as well as just composition in general of some of the instruments to making it sound more natural and more realistic. So that includes pianos, strings, and even vocals soon, so watch for that. But those I want to emulate some of how it sounds naturally, and then make sure that the dynamics of that match and the rhythm, the timing, that way that it sounds more that like someone else is actually playing it rather than something that's been generated artificially. So that's something that I want to work on. Another thing that I would like to work on is the mixing and mastering process. So I've had a lot of experience with transcribing music. I've been doing that for quite a few years, 3 or 4 years now. But I've just started this year, 2020, doing some of electronic music, so the mixing and mastering. So I would like to work on that a little more. That way I can improve my compositions in the future. And of course, working on some background music is a great way to help me work on that. So I'm thankful for this opportunity to do so, and I will continue to work on that throughout the process. Speaking of work on this channel though, I do have to admit that I took a little detour these past 2 weeks, taking 1 week entirely just to code a Minecraft plugin. Yes, that's right, I was coding a Minecraft plugin. Now, why I did this? Well, it was partially an experiment for how I would handle a work situation where I went all out on a project until it was finished. That was partially, but mostly it was because that I lost control and I spontaneously felt that, oh, that's something interesting that I want to do, and I went for it. So, the experiment part, that's sort of an excuse, but I did take it as an experiment, and I did learn a lot of, just technically, a lot of Java throughout the process. Besides just the technical skills of how to code Minecraft plugins and how Java works, I also learned a few things just about how I operate and what is best for me to be productive. One thing that I learned is that throughout the day, I can handle doing technical work, so coding or math or something like that. I can handle that quite well consistently throughout the day. But for more creative work, like thinking up of what I actually want from the plugin, or music, composition, art, like that, that's a little bit more limited, and also there are specific times in the day where that's better suited for me. When I can't do, or I don't feel like my creative work is going to be the best, I can substitute that time for doing some technical work if I have technical work to do. That way I can make the most out of my time. I also learned that for work periods, I prefer longer periods of work than short periods of work. Now, why? Because short periods of work, even if it's the same amount of total work time, the transitions between the work periods, they take time to get through, right? Because you don't just jump right into the project in that flow state. You have to work your way and build that momentum. And that lost momentum from starting and stopping with short work periods, that affects the productivity. So if I can afford longer periods of work time, then I'll go for that from now on. And besides just longer periods of work time, I also learned through this process that, well, taking a detox from social media and just from media and electronics in general is a pretty good thing. Throughout this process, of course, I stared at my computer screen for most of the day, so didn't get to detox there. But I did learn that at night, when I was able to finally put that away, that it felt good to not have that backlit monitor on me all the time, right? But another thing is that because I was focused on the Minecraft plugin, I was not able to, and I didn't go onto social media that much. And I don't usually go on social media. The normal social media, YouTube is the one exception. I go on quite a bit, but I was able to avoid that for this period, and I felt quite good actually, because if you look on social media and you scroll through all those posts, you're going to find a lot of negativity on there. And to be away from all of that, just to focus on my own work and something controllable and something that is inherently positive because I've been able to put in work and see progress, that's been quite good on me. So I feel like I can probably incorporate that and schedule in breaks, or just schedule in days where I just take a detox and get myself back into the focus. So those are a few things that I've learned from this process. And now, speaking of the social media part, the reason why the detox worked was because social media recently, as in the past decade, has gotten more toxic, which is why the detox has now been necessary. And I think the reason, or not just the reason, because there are many reasons behind this social phenomenon like this, there's not just one cause, but I feel like a contributing factor, a major factor, is that people have forgotten how to talk about politics conversationally. And let me give you an example of one such situation that happened pretty recently to illustrate this. So in the past week, China launched a probe to Mars, right? And now, at least I thought that this is great, right? This is a country launching a probe to Mars. This is a scientific and engineering feat to be celebrated. However, not everyone thought this was the case. And on several of the live streams, on the comments of YouTube sections, people were commenting on some of the human rights issues that are happening. And yes, that is a valid concern to have, that this government is doing some things that has ethical questions. However, this is a rocket launch, and bringing that into this, I feel like unless it's something that has to relate directly to that, I don't feel like that bringing that in is very appropriate. And in some senses, we have to be able to separate the artist from the art, right? Let's say an artist creates a beautiful painting and people enjoy it a lot, and the subsequent paintings are also beautiful. But then the artist does something like steal some candy or something, and they are caught for that. And now everyone knows that the artist stole some candy. So should that affect how you see the artist's painting? Does that affect how beautiful that the painting is? I don't think so, because that painting itself, you can analyze it for how good the painting is, but you can also separate out and say, okay, the artist produced this, which is nice, but the artists themselves may be doing some things that are not so great in general. And the ability to separate that, I feel like people have lost that, because if someone or something does anything negative, and of course we are human beings, these are human institutions and human constructs, we're going to make mistakes. So there's going to be something negative that's going to happen. And if that does happen, then should that ruin everything, all the progress that we've made, and color everything for the rest of our lives? I don't think so. And unfortunately, the modern world is very much built around this cancellation of someone once they do something bad. Now, of course, there are some things that are pretty terrible that merit concern throughout the rest of their lifespan. However, that shouldn't really I don't think that should color their work that they do, though. And another issue here is that with talking about politics, there's this stigma that it has to be polarizing. And then because of that stigma, people then come into it prepared for an argument. And because you're prepared for an argument, every little bit will seem like an argument. And before you know it, it is an argument, a full out argument with two sides that you have to pick and fight. And it just spirals out of control. And I feel like that this has to do with conversational politics. Now, what is conversational politics then compared to this? Well, think of it as just like talking about the weather or talking about the sports team, which, yes, that's controversial recently too. So, but something that's more conversational, like, oh, how's your family? You can also talk about, oh, what do you think about this political conversation or political policy? Now, of course, politics is inherently more exciting to people, right? When I talk about politics, my heart gets pumping and the adrenaline gets going. So yes, there's a different physiological response when we talk about things that relate to our values. However, if you think about politics as being just something that will get you into an argument and that you have to disagree with someone with, and it's seen as a blame throwing game, then it will be that. And I feel like that if you take it as a conversational approach and listening to someone about their approach and saying, oh, okay, so you think about it this way, and that's okay, you think differently from me, then I feel like a more useful conversation would happen than just the blame throwing that's happening. And the ability to do so would then help you distinguish, okay, at what times would talking about politics or some other aspect about this human entity be appropriate and actually matter in this situation? How would it be helpful to the conversation, right? Because hopefully your goal is not to bring the entire humanity down. Your goal is to talk about it and get some action out of it, right? You're not just talking about human rights violations just so you can say humanity is dumb, we're not going to be living forever, or humanity's not going to go on, right? Hopefully that's not your goal. But hopefully your goal is to say, okay, these are some things we don't want to do. How can we eliminate that? How can we get the people that are doing that to stop, right? So if you think of it that way, then you start to realize a lot of the conversations we see are very counterproductive. And that's the nature of when you don't understand how to talk about politics and how to handle this. So I feel like that the toxic nature of the media that we have seen in the modern days, a lot of it attributes to the fact that people have lost their ability to talk about politics in a conversational manner. Ooh, all right, let's move on to our one question AMA. Our question this week comes from Alfred Prose. Thank you so much, Alfred. All right, the question is, when facing with a very hard problem, like math, a puzzle, or challenges, and you get stuck, what do you normally do with it and to get through? So he normally takes a walk. And what social media do you normally use and why? All right, so those are good questions. So for problems, I feel like that problems can be split into different problems or different types of problems, right? Not all problems are created equal. Some require more creative thinking as you are trying to determine how you would like the system to work out or how you would like to design it, right? In other situations, it's a little bit more technical in nature with problem solving, something like math or science in some senses, right? So those, I feel like they're a bit different. And how I handle creative issues when I have a creative problem to think, I tend to take breaks a lot. So that's just stop thinking about the thing entirely, do something else that gets me off a little bit, and I can come back and come in with a fresh mind to start and look at it with a new perspective, right? And one thing that that helps me quite a bit is just to go outside, or taking a walk is a good one. And if possible, going outside gives you some inspiration. It lets you get a little detox just from the electronics and all that. But taking a walk in general just gets your blood flowing, and then you might have new ideas coming in. So that's something that I typically do for when I have a creative problem that's hard to solve. Now with some more technical issues like a hard math problem, I do take breaks sometimes. Breaks are universally something that is good for a reset and refocus. But for these, I look at some of either my previous work that I've done that is related to this, or how someone else has done this work. Now, it's not that I do these two completely different things, one taking a break and one I look at some of how other people have done it, looking for examples. No, those are two different tools or methods that I use, and it's just how I use it, the degree I use it for these problems. With creative work, I take more breaks. With technical work, I go more for examples and trying to solve it right there. And the reason why I do that is because for creative work, I want it to be my own ideas, right? So if I look at examples, it's good to have examples of how people have handled designing some things, or look at how people have made their own, right? But I want it to be my idea, because if you're making something creative and it's just a copy of someone else's, it's not really creative, and you don't have that same joy of making something that's yours versus something that's more technical. If it's solving just an issue, how you get to it is not necessarily that important, and the your own idea behind it, I guess, is what I mean. It's not that important. If you see someone else solve it this way and then you borrow that method to solve it from now on, then it doesn't really take away from it. It does feel nice to solve a problem on your own, for sure, and I do that quite a bit too. But borrowing from someone else's with someone else's ideas on something that's more technical is something that I feel better and more okay with doing. So that's how I would approach those types of problems. All right, now with social media, I don't go on social media a lot. Some social media that I use, a good majority of it is just to communicate with other people in chats. So that includes Snapchat, Instagram, and email too, right? That's a form of communication. So I use those sparingly just to communicate with people. Discord, I can also include that in there. And another major section is, I guess, this one is just to keep track of the news. I don't go out and look for the typical news, since I know that it's sensationalized and it's pretty useless to me. But I do keep track of specific news related to either Tesla or SpaceX. And specifically for SpaceX, I go on Reddit and Twitter quite a bit just to look at Elon's posts about what SpaceX has done, or SpaceX's posts, and on some subreddits that are focused on SpaceX, I can take a look at some progress that they've made that normally isn't brought out into the general public, that only the most try-hard nerds are into. So I take a look at that, and those are some other social media that I use. One social media platform that I use a lot is YouTube. Now, part of it, of course, is because I am on YouTube, but the other part is just because, well, information is quite addictive, and I like educational and something that is more, I guess, inspirational in nature. So on YouTube, I get to find a lot of good educational content and things that I can learn about. So I guess the quality of the content there's a lot to look at. And videos, to me, they are a form of media that I enjoy a lot. So I'm on YouTube quite a bit for either just learning about something or just for entertainment purposes. So that's why I'm on YouTube quite a bit. All right, thank you, Alfred, for that question. If you'd like to be part of my episodes and take part in this One Question AMA, please feel free to leave a comment down below with the question, either on the YouTube video for this episode, or if you're on a podcast platform, go down and comment about this episode, and I will pull a question for the next episode. All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode. Thank you everyone so much for supporting me throughout this process. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section. Take care, and I will see you in the next episode.